What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Coach to Coach podcast. Before we get rolling, take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have any ideas about topics that you would like to hear us discuss, drop it down below in the comment section. Today, we are going to be talking about, I don't even know how to phrase this, but it's basically how others can influence your own progress. The things that people say, oh, just have a bite. Like, you really can't eat that. I'm sure we've all been there at particular points in times, and it can be a little bit tricky to navigate relationships, essentially, while you are trying to make progress doing this whole fitness thing. So is that something that because you are, Joe, you are in somewhat of a new relationship at this point.
7 months.
So not okay. That's not new.
No.
But in the earlier weeks and months of your relationship, was that for you? Did you ever kind of encounter any of that, the point of tension in that way?
No, I think I got blessed, honestly. No, there was never anything like that. I guess it's why I brought it to you is because I've had like numerous talks with clients like this week saying that they were like dealing with that. And it would be like, my girlfriend, her family likes to cook a lot. They're feeding me. It's making it hard to like stick to any structure because there's just so much food being put in my face all the time. Or there was like, I have like a woman who's married and she's talking about her husband is like, oh, you've been doing so well, you've been doing what you're supposed to, like one dinner or one outing or whatever it is, you can do that, you have the room for it, and it's like happening frequently, so it's just making it a bit difficult to manage for clients because they have people that are in their inner circle that love them, and they're kind of wanting them to get off track a little bit. But for me, yeah, personally, no, I'm lucky for it. She always kind of understood like what I was going for, what I want, and like I want to stay as on plan as I can, as much as I can. So luckily, no. What about you?
I have in the past, and like, previous relationships, but like what in short, no, it's never been an issue with my current partner, because just off the jump I set the tone where the very first date that we went on, I was a day out, so it was the day before a powerlifting competition, and I told her, I said, hey, when 9 o'clock rolls around, I'm leaving. I got to go to bed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, that's kind of like, that's kind of when the night's still young at that point, but that kind of set the tone for me, us in the relationship, where it's like, hey, this thing is important, and so I think that's one side of it. But obviously not everybody has that sort of opportunity in a relationship, because maybe you're in a solidified relationship and now you're getting into this sort of fitness realm, and you're trying to get in shape. So that can be a little bit harder to navigate, for sure. With your client, what did you end up kind of trying to give him any feedback or any suggestions on how he might navigate that?
Yeah, it was just preparation. So like there was a couple ways. One, if he wanted to stay as on plan as possible, just bring a meal with you. So you're eating while everyone else is eating. But two, if you did want to, you mentioned this in one of the past podcasts, was just bank certain calories. Eat high protein before, prioritize protein ahead of time, prioritize water. And if you want, and the things are somewhat trackable, mostly the carb and the fat content, then, you can pick at the foods or whatever that they have. But it was mostly just prepare for it, just prepare better.
Yeah, and it can be tricky because it kind of depends on the frequency at which these things are happening. Oh, because the truth of it is like, you hear people say like, have balance in what you do, right? But the truth of it is that if you are after incredible results, if you really want to make impactful and meaningful changes to your physique, that balance is not going to be what you think it is. It's not actually going to be, it's not a 50-50 split is what I'm getting at, right? So you're not going to be able to just go out and do whatever you want 3 or 4 times per week. because you that is not going to allow you to make the same progress as if you were to have a single free meal in the week. You know what I mean? So you kind of have to establish that, like, yeah, there can be balance, but the balance isn't what everybody thinks it is. And that kind of shifts depending on like what your goal is. But the more you get towards the extreme end of the spectrum in terms of like the type of progress that you want to make, the less true balance you have. And it's more so like very targeted and intentional compromises rather than just like straight up balance and 50-50. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But I think that with some of this, it can be helpful to frame things like we as human beings, like a lot of our social settings, they do revolve around food. You know what I mean? Like we like food, food tastes good. You know, you go out to eat or you sit down with your family or whatever. But I think if you frame it in a way where come to the understanding that like what is really important is the time spent together and the conversation, and the back and forth and the presentness and not just the food. And you can do those things. You can have conversations. You can spend quality time with your loved ones, even if you're not eating the same thing that they're eating. You know what I mean? You know, me and my partner, we eat very similar foods, but we sit down every evening together, and more often than not, we're not eating the same thing. Like I'm eating my food that aligns with my goals and the quantities that align with my goals, and she's eating whatever she wants to eat. But we are always sitting down together, we're spending time together, and we're enjoying those meals together, even though they're different meals. So I think if you can kind of frame it that way and have a conversation about that and say like, hey, let's try to focus on the time spent together and not just the food, then it can be super helpful to frame it in that way.
Yeah. And on a on another note, or I guess another way to look at it too, was like doing what we do, just being in shape, even being in the gym, you're already part of a small niche of the population. So like off the rip, you're already kind of separating yourself from a large population of people that aren't doing what we do, and so there's going to be I think of some ignorance, I guess, to like what it means to people that do what we do. Like you're already setting yourself apart. Most of the time, you're gonna interact with people that don't identify or aren't doing the same things that you do, and that's just gonna make it tough because it's gonna be everywhere.
Yeah, and at the root of it, it's like, we don't want to be average, right? Like we don't want to be the average Joe, right? And again, like your own goals are your own goals, and where you lie on that spectrum of like, hey, just maybe being in a little bit better shape to just being like as big and as muscular and as lean as possible. It all of that is basically not average, because if you look at the average person, they're nowhere near that. You know what I mean? And so really what it boils down to is that if you don't want to be average and have an average, physique, then you need to stay away from the things that average people consistently do or don't do. And the things that average people consistently don't do is they don't weigh themselves, they don't weigh their food, they don't control their food quality, they don't have any thought other than hungry, eat, and whatever they want to eat. You know what I mean? So you have
Yeah.
to understand, like, and come to terms with, like, I don't want to be that. And, so I can't do those things. Like, it's just the nature of it. It's a simple equation. If you don't work, you don't get paid. So if you want to get paid, you have to work. If you want to be in shape, you have to do X, Y, Z. If you don't do these things, you don't get in shape. It's as simple as that. It's a super simple equation.
Yeah, yeah, agree. I mean, yeah, that was pretty much all I had on it, and it was thought it'd be relevant to talk about because I know there have been times where I've felt drawn to like falling off plan, or like we were just talking about, just being at events and everyone's eating kind of stuff, but or just eating whatever they want, and I know Any time that I did slip up, it is because I didn't prepare. I just didn't set any guidelines earlier in the day. I knew that this event was coming up, and so I was like, I went from the mindset of like, I'm just gonna bank calories. I'm just not gonna eat a ton beforehand, but then it comes time where you're surrounded by these foods that smell good, and then I'm just more likely to overeat, binge eat, whatever it was, and then just completely screw that day almost.
And, prepared, there is a number of ways that you can be prepared. And how prepared or how specific you need to be depends on where you're at. But it could range from you saying, hey, I'm going to bring my own food. Like, I'm literally going to have a normal meal that I would eat, and I'm going to bring it to, the restaurant, the gathering, whatever, and I will eat that meal when everybody else is eating the food that they've ordered. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it would be to bank calories, right? To bank calories, maybe you pull down carbohydrates and fats from some of your earlier meals in the day or later meals after the event or the outing or whatever it is, right? So that you have some calories and macros banked for that event. But then, if you really want to get specific, you kind of need to be prepared even beyond that, because you need to have a game plan for what you're actually going to order and eat when you get there. Right? It's one thing to just say, hey, I'm going to pull a little bit of carbs and fats from, my earlier meals, but like that needs to line up to what you are doing at that restaurant meal, right? So that's where taking some time to look at, and this is exactly what I did for my birthday dinner that I just went out to, right? So I looked ahead at the menu, I figured out what stuff I wanted to eat, and I pre-logged it so that when I got there, I knew exactly what I was doing, exactly how much of it to eat, and I also knew exactly what the food outside of that restaurant meal needed to look like in order to keep my plan in total for the day lined up, right? And then from that point, it's just a matter of sticking to it. But I would highly encourage you, anybody that is trying to come into the situation prepared, that you take the time to, look at the menu. And this is not labor intensive. This is not like you're not fucking writing a research paper. It's not hard, right? So you just look at the menu, you figure out what lines up and what you want to eat and what you have the budget for, the caloric and macronutrient budget for, and then you just stick to that. You know what I mean? It's super simple, but if you do that, that is a system that can absolutely work and allow you some flexibility while you're, out and about and having a good time with your people.
Yeah, I had sent that story actually that you had posted just so they could see, like, I had sent it to the clients that I was talking about just so they could see like it is possible to make it all line up. Like it is just a couple extra steps, but it's really not as impossible to manage as they might think it is.
And it might, depending on how much you want to eat at that event, it might require you to make a deal with yourself. And that deal with yourself may be, hey, I'm going to have a more calorically dense meal for eating out. And it's probably going to be higher in fats and higher in carbohydrates and lower in protein. And what that might require you then to do for your other meals of the day is to basically just eat protein and vegetables. That may be what it is. You know what I mean? And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that, doing that on a one-off, but you have to make that deal with yourself and say like, hey, I'm just going to do protein veg, and I'm going to bank the max amount of carbohydrates and the max amount of fat, and maybe even eat a little bit more protein at your other meals so that you know that you're covering your protein requirement for the day, because that meal eaten out, that might have 30, 40 grams of protein in it, tops. You know what I mean? So you want to cover your bases as much as you can in those controlled meals so that everything just lines up by the end of the day. And if you develop these systems and keep it in place, it becomes very easy to navigate all this. There's essentially, something I tell my clients, there's essentially no situation that I could find myself in outside of being in prison in which I wouldn't be able to control my food. I could be called away right now. You got to get on a plane, you got to go across the country, and I could tell you that airport food, gas station food, restaurants, whatever I had to do, I would be able to have a plan in place and cross the T's and dot the I's. It just takes a little bit of tinkering and a little bit of planning, and it's not hard. And once you get to that point, it removes a lot of anxiety and you're just fluid with it, man. That's honestly the best place to be, where you're just a fucking you're a nutritional, you're a macro wizard. But in order to get to that point, you have to practice. You have to do these things, and to be quite honest with you, you have to fail at them. You will likely fail at them, but after you fail at a thing or you miss the mark more than you wanted to, then you take inventory, you review, and you refine your process. And the next time it comes up, you get a little bit better at it. And through the course of trial and error, you arrive at a place like, myself and like you, where it doesn't really matter what comes up in the day. Work takes a crazy turn, you get a flat tire, you drop your meal. It doesn't matter, because I can figure out how to make this work no matter what.
Yeah, eventually you do, after just staying on point and knowing how to manage these things, you do eventually just like you're just not drawn to these foods anymore. You're like, it really doesn't matter. You just know how to make it work. You've been doing it for so long, it just becomes all part of the routine.
One thing I do want to touch on, and I think this is really important and a practical takeaway that can kind of change how some of these situations play out, because we've all been there, and if you haven't, you will at some point, where you are with family, friends, loved ones, and they're like, hey, just have a little bit, like just live a little. And these are little digs almost, right? But they want, like, one by one, they break your willpower down, where you're like, you hear it so many times, it's like, all right, and you cave in and you just do it, you just end up eating off plan. And then later you're like, fuck, why did I do that? You know what I mean? And I think that you can get ahead of a lot of that by how you speak, how you,
I was getting a call.
all good, by the things that you say and the energy that you put out. So what I mean by that is you go out to a restaurant or whatever, you're with your significant other or friend or whatever, and you're sat down, you're looking at the menu, and you say, oh, I can't have that. I'm not allowed to have that. I don't have enough calories for that. All of those things, this person you're with cares about you. So all of those things are going to create a sympathy response in them. So they're going to see, oh, my friend, he's not allowed to do this. He doesn't want to do this because that's the energy you're putting out. I can't. I'm not allowed, right? So they're going to have a sympathy response, and they're going to say, oh, just have a little bit, honey. Just have some of this. It's not going to hurt you, right? Whereas if you didn't say any of that shit, you know what I mean? And you just like, I can't have a burger, so I'm going to have a salad, right? You're going to get a sympathy response off of that. Versus if you were just like, man, the salad looks good, I'm going to have a salad. That's what I'm craving. They would say nothing. They wouldn't even think twice about it. You're not going to get a sympathy response because you just said that you want a fucking salad. And why are they questioning you? They're not going to question that. You know what I mean? So the energy that you put out is going to determine some of the energy that you receive back. And that is a huge, huge thing. And ultimately, it's not that you can't have this thing or that you're not allowed to have this thing. It's that stuff doesn't line up to what your goals that you set out for yourself are. So this is all, nobody's forcing you to get in shape. Nobody's forcing you to try to be healthy and, do these things. This was all your call. So why would you say you can't? No, it's not that you can't. You don't want to, right? That's what it is. It's not that you are being restricted. It's that you shouldn't want to have these things because it doesn't fucking line up, right? So put that energy out there, and that person that you're with, the people that you're with, they're going to respond in kind. They're not going to come at you with a sympathy response that is ultimately going to, break down your willpower. So that's honestly, that's a huge one for me, and something that I learned firsthand. Once I stopped, saying like, oh, I can't have that, that's not on my diet, I stopped getting pushback. Because it was not about that. It was just about, this is what I'm doing. I'm just going to eat and I don't know why I keep saying a salad, but I'm just gonna eat the chicken breast and
Yeah.
baked potato, like you know what I mean, or whatever it is, whatever clean, less calorie dense option. That's just what I'm eating today because I'm craving that. Versus I'm only eating that because I can't have these other things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. That's a brilliant way to look at it too, because yeah, exactly what you just explained. If you're showing a type of emotion or showing some type of resistance to doing whatever you're supposed to be doing, it is, yeah, you are gonna get those responses from people. And eventually you're just gonna get tired of saying no to them all the time. And then eventually, yeah, you're gonna crack.
Yep. Yep. And also like just don't even make it a thing. Like whenever I get together with my family pretty frequently, okay? I go out to eat with my partner, right? I'm not, and I might be on my phone, like messing around, like if I haven't already figured out what I'm doing, because maybe I just didn't know what the family was cooking or whatever. I'm on my phone as I'm going, and I'm just in Chronometer, my Fitness Pal, and I'm moving things around. I'm kind of looking at what food is available, and I'm punching stuff in and the quantities that I need. I'm moving stuff around. I'm not voicing to everybody, hey, wait, guys, I gotta vlog my food. Like, just don't even make it a thing. Nobody knows what you're doing on your phone, so don't create the situation that to even get a response from people. Just do what you need to do and just be fluid with it and just log your food and be present and just move on with it, and don't make it a thing, and it won't be a thing, you know?
Yeah, 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 that's a great point. Can we pause? My work literally just called me. Do I just like how do I join this? Just
I don't
rejoin
know.
the link?
Maybe. Yeah.
All right, I'm sorry, dude. I don't even have the phone number yet, so it popped up as spam, but then they literally just texted me.
Yeah.
So
Call them.
it shouldn't be long. Give me one sec. All right, we back.
Cool. Let me get this.
Do you want to talk about training at all?
Yeah, I got
How your
one
week
more thing.
was?
I got one more thing I want to touch on for that. So, if after you've started implementing all of the things that we talked about, right, and how you are coming into these situations prepared, how you are not making it a thing, right, the language that you're using around your friends, family, and loved ones, if after all of that you're still met with resistance, and usually there's two situations, right? It's usually going to be the girlfriend or boyfriend, or like the grandma that gets offended that you're not that you're not eating her home cooked food, right? Those are the kind of the two situations that come up a lot. But if after implementing these things you're still getting some resistance, then the way through is communication. What you need to do is effectively and in a very direct way communicate with your people. And you might need to have a sit down and say, hey, you know what I'm doing, the way that I'm eating, the lifestyle that I'm leading, this is very important to me. It's very important. And when you have that kind of direct and you use those words and that language, tell them it's very important to me. And in order for me to reach my goals, I need to operate in this way. And it would be wonderful if you could actually support me and help me to get through to that goal by not saying some of the things or giving me pushback, right? And when you say that to them, they care about you, so that they're going to say, damn, you know what, I didn't realize how important it was to you. You know what, I think that's a great thing, and I'll do whatever I can to help you along. And then you'll have a paradigm shift to where you show up, and maybe you show up to the family dinner, and maybe they've started thinking about, like lower carb options or lower fat options, right? And they're like, oh, I got this for you. They start considering that a little bit more. And now, instead of working against you, they're working with you and they're working for you to try to help you. Because ultimately, again, if they care about you, that's just the logical thing. That's just what's gonna happen. But you need to tell them. You need to tell them this is very important to you, and when you do, it can change things. So, communication, like many things in life, being able to speak directly and tell people exactly what you're going through or what you're feeling can open up a lot of doorways and dramatically shift situations for sure. And
Yeah.
with the case, like with maybe a girlfriend, right, where maybe she wants to go out to eat a little bit more than you do, or boyfriend, right, and maybe you're at a particular point in your journey where like you need to be fairly strict, right? There's different points, you know, again in the journey, like where if you are in a growing phase, you have more caloric flexibility, right? Like so when I went out to eat, I'm working with 4,500 calories. It's pretty easy to move things around when you're eating that amount of food, right? But when you're eating 2,500 calories, it gets a little bit harder to really make that happen. And so you may not be able to because there's not really many great options that line up at the restaurant, right? Or wherever you're going. And so if you find yourself in that phase and you need to be pretty strict, communication again to say, hey, what I'm doing right now is really important to me. I'm not going to be in this phase of the journey forever, right? And I just need you to hang in there with me. You know, it's going to be a matter of weeks, you know, for like a fat loss phase. The next, 10, 12 weeks ahead of me, I'm only going to be able to go out once a week. But once I turn around and get into a place where my food's a little bit higher, we can go out a little bit more frequently and, have a little bit more flexibility. But for the time being, I need to be locked in, and it's not going to be forever. It's just for right now. And again, if you have that communication and you frame things that way, it can be the carrot being dangled on the stick in front of them, and they're like, okay, well, it's important. It's not forever. Okay, I can do this for now. And
Yeah.
communication.
I've always gotten that feedback, what you were just describing, when I have been like, this does matter to me. Like you can like do and eat what you want, like have fun, whatever, but like it's not gonna be the same for me. I'm not gonna be eating and doing some of the same things and having all the treats. And it was all I always got that back, which was like, you know what, yeah, like I can respect that. Like when those moments came, there was like a level of respect and care, and they were like, are you going to be good, or like, are you okay? Is it like affecting you? I guess me having this food, like you don't feel the type of way, and I'm like, nah. So, yeah, that's always been a huge help, and even for like Valentine's Day, when you're just you're buying a bunch of candy, she wants the candy and stuff like that. My girlfriend had bought me a bag of chocolates and she was like, they're like the lowest calorie ones. Like, I don't want you to like
See?
be mad at me or anything. Like, and I was I was like, nah, you're good. Like, I appreciate it. She was like, I was like really worried about it, but like, it was just a cool thing. But yeah, it will seep into just like how the dynamic is regularly just in the relationship. So,
Yep. Yep. You
and
just need.
and
Go ahead.
unironically, like she's wanting to do the same things that I'm doing now, and I'm actually able to help her like get started and get going on her journey. So, like you said, like it opens their eyes too, and it'll pique their interest a little bit, and they'll start trying to do what we do.
And I think it's important sometimes that happens and evolves naturally where the people around you see the progress that you're making and they get influenced by you in a positive way to start making those changes for themselves. But I also think, just going back to kind of language and stuff, I also think it's important not to force your goals and your aspirations on other people. Because when you do that, people can get defensive and, because most I don't care who you are. Most people would like to lose a couple pounds or be a little bit leaner, right? And so if you kind of force your ideals, your goals, your operation on them when they're not exactly ready for it and they haven't come to it on their own, that can be a bad spot to be in and create some more resistance. So like don't make your problems, not problems, but your goals other people's, right? Like if somebody asks you like, hey, let's go out to dinner again, like saying, nope, I can't do, just go out with them. Like don't punish them, because just go out, just control your food, bring your meal. There is a way that you can do all of this, but it's going to take a little bit of effort, but there is a happy medium where everything can operate really, really freaking smoothly. But a lot of it, again, it just comes down to preparedness and communication.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. We kind of skipped at the beginning. How are things? How are you? What's going on?
Yeah, yeah. So I think I'm entering the fifth week of my bulk. It's either fourth or fifth week, something like that. And everything's going really well. Food's getting not super high, but it's getting there. Once I really like eating between 4,000 and 4,500 calories. That is a pretty good spot for me to be in, where I'm not too full. I'm still hungry between my meals. Once the food starts getting north of 5,000 calories, uh, it's not as enjoyable, because that's a lot of food, and then you get north of 5,500, 6,000, then it's just like it's crazy. So right now, food is in a really good spot. Pretty fluid with my macros from day to day, but I usually fall in a pretty consistent range with my macros. And so it's usually something like 300 to 350 grams of protein. So pretty high right now. But that's from all sources. So it's not just direct protein, but maybe direct protein, probably still close to 270, 280. And then the remainder coming from, incomplete proteins from like rice and potatoes and oats and stuff. But yeah, protein's like 300, 350. Carbs are typically like 500 to 650, and fats are typically, 60 to 100, somewhere in there. So food's pretty decent. Training is really in a great spot. Starting to build back some pretty solid training, or strength, I should say. I'm in my 8th week of running basically a percentage-based progression for squat, bench, and deadlift, and recently hit 500 on deads. I think I got 7 or 8 reps, which is awesome because I haven't been up over 500 for quite a while. Bench was like 315 for 3 sets of 3, and there's a lot more in the tank with that. But really, the limiting factor on my bench at present is just like, some of it is equipment, because this bench I have here is super rinky-dink. It's got a split in the seat, so I need to get like a
Okay.
dedicated bench, because it's wobbly, right? It doesn't feel stable. The height of it isn't great, so I can't get like really stable off the ground. But bench is feeling pretty good. It's getting there. And then squats, those I played it very, very conservative with squats. Like, the first week in this training, I was squatting like 155, for 5 sets of 5. So very conservative, and just hit 265 for 3 sets of 3. And it literally looks like warm-up weight. I just breezed through it. But it's taken me a lot of patience and holding myself back, because I want to lift more weight, but I ultimately know that I need to drive, 30 and 40 miles an hour, not 100 miles an hour, because if I drive 100 miles an hour, I already know what's going to happen, and that's going to be my knees just take a L, and then I'm out, and then I can't squat anymore. Just really taking a lot of just patience with the squats and just building it up. I'm not really super interested in getting my squats up above, say, I don't know, 405. At that point, I'll just, I don't know, try to move in a different direction. But I'd like to get my squat back up to 3 plates, 4 plates, and bench maybe get back up to 4 plates. And deadlifts, I want to be 600 pounds. Of all of the 3 main lifts, deadlifts are the ones is the lift that I have the most confidence in at this point, that I'm not like worried about like getting hurt, that I don't really have aches and pains. So that is one, that I would like to see 600. If I can get back up to, a 700-pound deadlift, that would be fantastic. But at present, I'm just slowly, week by week, just putting in the work, staying patient, and just going to see it climbing, and try not to beat the shit out of my body. But yeah, outside of that, everything's moving well. I'm closing in on 240 pounds and still in really, really decent shape. Not too fat yet. I was 234 this morning, so just kind of been bouncing around in the mid 230s. But everything's just moving really well. It's fun to be in this spot, where I'm still pretty lean. Strength is good. Food is nice and moderate. It's kind of like the Goldilocks zone, which at some point it's gonna get into the nitty gritty. But for the time being, man, I really like where I'm at. What about you?
Good. Yeah. Yeah, I just messaged you the other day. Right now, and what we're doing, I'm having the most fun I think I ever have. Like, in all of the years that I've been working out. Lifts just continue to climb, progressing in some way every session, whether it's weight or whether it's adding reps to every set. My body feels good. Just literally watching my body change. I'm only working out 4 days a week right now. And at the beginning, I was like, yeah, I was telling you, I was like, I feel like I have more. Like I want to, like I could do a fifth day, or even I think there was a point where we worked out together 6 days, didn't we?
Yeah.
And so, as just someone who's always wanting to like go and like I love being in the gym, like having to dial it back to 4 days, it felt weird. But after one, seeing my weights progress, and two, just like I love the workout split that we currently have. Like it's just the most fun that I've been having. Yeah, you mentioned like holding back a little bit, or saving some. That's also something that I've had to get more comfortable with, because you'll have me stopping at, a certain rep range. Just if you hit this number, stop, don't go past it. And that was a bit of a switch up too, because we're always talking about, it hitting failure, going to failure. There was a couple movements that we used to do. It was like, 4 sets of 20, 4 sets of 15, or whatever it was. And there's still some of that in there, but it's
Yeah.
not every lift. But yeah, overall, I'm just loving the way that I feel, loving the way that the sessions feel. I'm literally excited to go in there. And you actually inspired me to start recording my full sessions, my full workouts.
Good.
And yeah, that's going to be something that I'm literally going to start that today. So for upper one, I'm going to record as much of that as I can, and yeah, start getting those YouTube videos pumped out.
So you're gonna be throwing them up on YouTube?
Yeah, and then just it's kind of a twofer, because I mean I'm going to speak a little bit during them, and make some clips for YouTube, or for Instagram and TikTok and stuff. Kind of get all of them, get all of the social
Yeah.
medias in there, clips.
The only thing that sucks about trying to do it across platforms is like for YouTube, you film like this, and for Instagram and TikTok, you film straight up and down, and so the cropping can get a little bit funky. But it's not a huge issue, but it's something that kind of sometimes I'm like, should I film for Instagram? Should I film for YouTube? And more often than not, I'm just filming like this because this can look good across all platforms, but this sometimes looks like really weird on YouTube. So, but on the note of pulling back and being a little bit more conservative on some of those big lifts, I think we touched on this in one of the other podcasts that we did, but where I'm really good at is walking the line between strength and bodybuilding. That's kind of like really my wheelhouse, because that's how I started. I wanted to be very strong, but I also wanted to look a particular way, and so I had always kind of blended the two. We call it power building if you want. But what we're doing with you and what I'm doing with myself is basically just the concept that, like, you know, if you're hypertrophy training, like, it's really hinged on, close proximity to failure, right? Where you are trying to get as close to, if not hit failure. And that is where the money is at, in those hard, slow, grindy reps, the ones that lead up to the weight just stopping moving, right? But on the other side of that, on the strength side, that can be a hindrance to really progressing strength. So in your case, what I'm trying to do with you is walk that line between the two worlds, between strength and hypertrophy, primarily because, just as a broad concept, most of the people you see that have put on significant amounts of muscle, right, over time, they at some point in time have been wildly strong. Whether they still train that way or not, it almost doesn't matter. But on the way up, they at some point were wildly strong. And, up to this point, you didn't have that base, right? So that was like me. I was thinking like, okay, that stone hasn't been turned over. Let's go ahead and turn that stone over and really get back to some of the basics in squat, bench, and deadlift. And there are variations of them that kind of line up a little bit more for hypertrophy, but let's kind of turn that stone over and really try to drive strength on those movements. And again, training those movements, if you're really trying to build your strength, training it to failure week after week after week, that's hard on your central nervous system. It can be great for building muscle, but not great for strength. So we're trying to build the strength on those big lifts, get it up to multiple plates where it's like, yeah, I'm moving some good weight. And then once we get that base built, then we can kind of start shifting the focus a little bit and making it purely hypertrophy focused all around across the board. But on the way up, to get there, the most efficient route to getting that base of strength, there's going to want to be sessions in which we don't go all out, you know? So I'm looking at what your rep speed looks like on those big lifts, and I'm kind of gauging that, right? And giving you targeted progressions from week to week to keep you in the middle and not redline you on every single on every.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I can feel it like it's working. I'm bigger. I'm definitely stronger than when we started. And yeah, I believe this is week 2 of the new block that you have me on. Well, technically the same. It's the same training, but just different setup. And my weight is up a bit from when we ended the cut. So yeah, it's all is going according to plan. Everything feels great. So I'm just I'm excited.
I've got a couple clients for whom I am really staying on top of the logbook, right? So normally, like how I had operated is for clients that I'm doing training for, I'm looking at how they're moving. So they're sending me videos and I'm providing them feedback on the execution of it, but I'm not pacing their progression from week to week. I'm not saying, hey, I want you to lift this weight next week. I just give them the system for progression, right? To say, hey, once you get above the target rep range, then you can go ahead and add a little bit of load. But I'm not, wasn't micromanaging that, right? And there are a couple clients for whom I am micromanaging it and being very specific with the load targets and the rep targets week by week on just the big lifts. I'm letting them manage the other stuff, the single joint stuff on their own, right? So they're taking care of the progressions on their own. But for the big fucking lifts, right, the ones that have the highest ceiling for load, I'm kind of micromanaging it. And in every single case, it's like progress is just fucking going up at a very steady and clear rate. So I think that, for a lot of people, like if I think training, man, I think it's absolutely crucial. So many of us would benefit from really just falling in love with training again and trying to learn as much as you can about training and never stop trying to refine the process and really keep that a focal point. I think the food is fundamentally important for sure, but ultimately, like, if you're not progressing the way that you would like to be, and you really haven't analyzed your training, you're not looking at, what your volume is, you're not looking at, what your progressions are doing from week to week, and you're just kind of getting in the gym, you don't have a record of what you're doing, put that under the lens and start looking at that and start trying to quantify things and get that measured and get accurate with it and push that from week to week. And I can almost guarantee you that things will start taking off.
Yeah, that logbook changes everything. Because
Yeah.
having all of the lifts out in front of me now, I'm starting to think back, like how much time did I waste? Like in those like those first years, I was like, damn, could I have been like this the entire time? And like, you got on me more about the logbook, so and the weights are going up, obviously. So
I think the logbook, like when you get to a certain point and have enough experience, I don't think that you need to logbook because you know what good training feels like. You wouldn't even need to count reps or sets. You would just know when you got the right stimulus. But for a lot of people, the logbook provides a system for you to have consistently repeatable results, right? And it's very easy to see this happening on paper. You're not just having to have it all in your head. It's right there, clear in front of you. You did this last week. That's the fucking bar. It needs to be that same thing or a little bit better, right? Because if you're left to your own devices, human nature is such that we kind of sometimes end up going the path of least resistance, right? And you start believing your own bullshit. Oh, well, I didn't sleep and I did this and I did. And you just end up getting away from where you really need to be at. But when you have a logbook in place, it's very black and white to see like, this is what happened before. This is where I need to be at to maintain my pace or exceed it.
yeah, nailed it on the head.
All right, so I think we covered some good stuff here. Hopefully, you guys got some good takeaways with handling relationships and food. You got anything else to add, Joe?
That is all.
All right, cool. we will see you guys on the next one.
Appreciate you guys.
Peace.